What's up, good people? It has been a while. I know it was late. I was just telling Craig a story. We were here on time,
Promise.
but I was telling Craig a story, and of course, I dragged it into our start time. But we're here, and that's all. Your boys have been busy. Well, I have. Craig's been ready to go, but I've been very busy. But we're here now, and we're here to talk about the Chargers off season so far. What we're going to do is we're going to go through internal free agent signings. We'll talk about some of those external free agents they brought in. We'll talk about some of the free agents they let go, like that didn't resign, and then kind of a overall outlook of how we felt free agency has gone and the roster right now as it sits. So I think, Craig, we can just go ahead and start off. And I think, I don't know, this isn't really chronological order, but there are two names that kind of have gotten lost. Well, maybe three have kind of gotten lost in the sauce a little bit here because they were signed so early that everything else behind it has kind of taken the conversation over. And the first one is they re-signed Khalil Mack, 1 year's $18 million.
Yeah. I know a lot of people felt a way about the number overall, but just looking at it from, I guess when you're looking at it in totality, he plays a premium position. It's just kind of the cost of the brick, to be completely honest with you. And you know what Khalil Mack brings to the defense. He's not completely falling off a cliff at age. What is he going to be, 34, 35 this year? Something like that. But the guy can still set a mean edge. He doesn't necessarily get after the quarterback the way that he used to. But, I mean, also keep in mind that last year, the dude suffered an injury that looked like it should have taken him out for the remainder of the season. And he missed, like 4 or 5 weeks. So even with that being said, you definitely felt that his presence was missed when he wasn't around. But he brings everything that you need defensively from a leadership standpoint, and behind him is just a bunch of young guys who are still kind of finding their groove. And since, and we're going to talk about this later, there was a major departure in the edge group, they're probably going to be looking to bring in another young guy. So you need someone like this in the room that can help set the standard, and everyone tries to play up to his level. So I'm happy to have Mac back. Yes, would I have liked it for like 14, 15 mil? Yeah, but that probably wasn't super realistic. So they had the money to do it, and it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, he had talked about like kind of being excited about testing the market and all that. So it wasn't like he was set on taking that hometown discount and going again. So, they sweeten the pot a little bit on the number, but who cares with all the money they have left over? I mean, this feels like a drop in the bucket, to be honest with you. And I mean, you've got one of the best veteran edge rushers back again. And they clearly needed it because, as we'll talk about, Owe left. But it just feels like 5.5 sacks while missing 5 or 6 games was a big improvement. When you saw Mack not on the field was when we started talking about like they got to trade for an edge. Like it changed this defense drastically when Khalil Mack wasn't on this field, and then when he got back on the field, and then you added Owe through trade, it just felt like the pass rush just got their juice back. So having Khalil Mack back, being able to have Thule still, they've got 2 edge rushers, which they can go into next year with, be pretty comfortable. But like Craig's kind of alluding to, it just feels like they're going to have to add somebody in the draft. And I think we'll get more into this when we talk about like the overall picture. But short term, this makes a ton of sense. I felt like I thought bringing Mack and Owe back would have made a ton of sense. But having Mack back was a priority, and I'm happy they got it done. Even though he played the whatever it was, 11 or 12 games this season, he was effective, and he would be sorely missed if they lost Mack and Owe. Being able to get Mack back was important, and they did, and I'm happy they did.
Yeah, if we're being honest, and again, I know we're going to talk about some of the departures, but people kind of saw the contract Owe got 4 years, 100 mil. It's steep, but also, again, premium position. But ask yourself this question: was Odafe Owe an every down edge player? Because he was still developing in the run game. He had great effort, but he was almost kind of more of a specialist as far as pass rushing is concerned. He was still building upon his ability to set the edge. But I don't think you pay that much to someone who you can't count on to be on the field down in and down out. So, yeah, I understand why they didn't pay that. So, to me, I can sort of justify the Mac positioning over the OA if you forced me to, because of everything that Khalil Mack offers you as an all-around edge player.
Yes. So re-sign Khalil Mack. Number didn't scare me off at all, but it was $18 million. Right before that, they re-signed Tier Tart, interior defensive lineman, to a 3-year extension worth up to $37.5 million. So not cheap here, but right around the price you would assume as a free agent he probably would have got. Was super effective in this defense. Was kind of a revelation. We'll kind of get into it, but it felt like they were able to take, at least this coaching staff was able to take some of these guys that were kind of thrown to the side a little bit. Tier Tart was a guy that the Titans kind of just felt like they didn't really need much anymore. There wasn't like, they were clamoring to keep him, and they were able to get him and then turn him back into his prime form. And man, not only was he good defensively, but he was a huge tone setter for this defense in the middle of that line. So when you need this, and we're going to get into how we feel about the roster, but Tier Tart was a must resign. He was at the top of the list. I feel like Mack was near the top of that list as well. But it felt like they were 1-2 in terms of bringing back their free agents internally. So they got Mack back, they got Tart back, but Tart, being able to be here for 3 more years with the production he had this past year was really important to this defense, and a really important signing at the beginning, right before free agency started.
And they also learned their lesson from the whole Puna Ford of it all, right? So
yeah,
they had a guy who stepped up that was pulled off the scrap heap. Like, as we mentioned before, a lot of these guys were cast-offs from other teams. Tart had been on quite a few teams, I think at least 3. And, he shows up in LA and he gets his chance to redeem himself. And he did it being kind of sort of the main guy on the interior and sort of in instances playing out of position, because Tart isn't necessarily a pure nose, but he was playing a lot of it. And now, because of some of the other additions, one which we'll get to later on extended, external today, Junior. He's going to be freed up to play more 3-tech alongside some of the other guys. So we're talking about him in probably his purest form and being able to really step it up a notch. And the Chargers were able to lock him in for a few more years. So you're seeing him ascend. And I think you might even see the best of him going into next year, because he's going to be freed up to do more of the disruptive stuff that he was built to do on the interior.
Yeah. Happy that they re-signed Tart. They're not anyway, we'll get into it. Not a ton that you're really excited about. In terms of internal free agents, these two, I was super jazzed that they were able to get both of these guys. All right, so moving on, they re-signed linebacker Denzel Perryman to a 1-year contract. Another guy that was pretty important to the middle of this defense. They bring back Perryman. Thought maybe they could go in a different direction, but they brought him back again.
So it makes sense when you consider that we still don't know what to expect from Junior Colson. So you got a guy who's familiar face on the interior of the defense. You probably know that you're not going to get him for the entire season, like the full 17 game slate. You're probably going to miss a few of those because Perryman has a tendency to be a bit injury prone, but you still get the leadership. You know what he is as a downhill thumper in the running game. He knows the system and he can set the tone. So I feel fine with this. I mean, you're not paying him a ton, nor would you expect to. He's just someone who helps bring that continuity again at the second level. And hopefully Colson plays well enough to where Perriman's kind of, sort of, I'm not going to say someone who's
what was that name?
Colson?
Who the hell is that?
Junior Colson? I don't know. Somebody. Now, I thought I was a fan of a few years ago, but for some strange reason, I don't know what's going on with the dude. I mean, I know there are injuries. Yeah. There was an appendectomy. He just had like the worst of everything in the first couple of years of his career. And when he's played, he hasn't really been at the top of his game either. But I mean, I know a lot of that has to do with not a lot of time on task. But for a guy who knew the system coming out, I expected more. But again, we still haven't seen enough of him to really, really make a solid judgment. But again, hopefully he's out there enough this season to where Perriman isn't on the field a ton. He's someone who can be, subbed in a pinch, maybe just in a rotation. If you're playing against a team that's really run dominant, you can throw Perriman in there. If you're in a set where you want to do like your 3-4 hybrid stuff, and you're going to have multiple linebackers out on the field in like a true base defense, not base in the way that they're probably going to play it, because, nowadays they run a lot of nickel with Derwin as the big nickel, the star player. So, yeah, I mean, it's cool to have Perriman back in. Again, it's depth. And if he turns out not to be someone who's on the field regularly, then it's just a solid signing from the perspective of having capable bodies on defense at the second level.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, it felt like Henley and Perryman really complemented each other last year when they were on the field together. I mean, yeah, like you said, you're probably going to get Perryman for 10 to 12 games a year. You're not going to get him for every game. But when he was in it, just like Tart, the defense was much better with Denzel Perryman in. And I know it's kind of a step back for Henley in terms of production. But I did feel like that pairing of Perryman and Henley were pretty good last year. So with Troy Dye, with Junior Colson, and then, another guy that they added, which we'll get to in a second. It feels like the running back, the same linebacker group is okay. They'll have to improve on it at some point, because I don't know that you can really depend on Junior Colson, and Troy Dye feels like a special teamer at best, kind of a linebacker 4-5 in your roster, which is nice depth. You got to have those guys. And then the special teams ace, which, we'll talk about Del'Shawn Phillips being added as well. Another guy that you feel great about as depth and special teams value, but just feels like outside of Henley, you don't have a lot of steady guys in the second level. You got some contributors, but I don't know that you have any 3-down players outside of that. And, we'll see how this plays out. But getting Denzel Perryman was nice. It wasn't like, I wasn't as jazzed about it as I was with Tart, which is the second time I said jazzed, which is probably the last time I'll do it in my life, maybe. But having Tart and Mack was really exciting. Perryman was fine. I thought it was a solid signing, and I'm happy they brought him back, because I really do think the pairing of Henley and Perryman were pretty good last year.
I will say this, though, thinking about it now that we're talking through it, a name to remember has to be Marlo Wax also, because we saw him flash a little bit at the end of the season. Someone who might get an opportunity to step up in the event that Colson isn't able to perform on the field or deals with something else that takes him off of it with regard to injuries. But I'd be on the lookout for Wax to make a little bit of noise also.
All right. So moving on, I guess since I mentioned him, let's just get right to Del'Shawn Phillips. He resigned 2 years, $7.5 million with a max value of $10.5 million. So if he does get thrown into starting role and shows that he can contribute, it'll get bumped up, which is nice for him. Seems like a fair deal for your best special teamers. And man, he was awesome on special teams when he was out there, because he had a slow start. He was injured early on in the year, but man, when he came on, it felt like he was getting 2 to 3 special teams tackle, and we were giving him a shout out almost every week.
Yeah, and he turned out to be worth every penny from a specialty standpoint. The Chargers pride themselves on having a good special teams now. We know that has not always been the case in the past. We've run into some bumps even here in the last couple of years, whether it be from like the punter position, sometimes on coverage plays, but Del'Shawn Phillips comes in, he shores pretty much all of that up. With regard to what he does on the field and regulatory defensive snaps, he's not a liability there, but where he shines is as a coverage guy on teams and as a core special teams player. Sometimes these guys are invaluable, especially the ones that you see on every coverage down. He's either making the play or forcing the play to where it can be made without something explosive happening. So Phillips coming back, I felt like was a no-brainer to me. Again, if you want to look at him as depth, cool, but that's secondary to what he provides on special teams, where his role is going to be primarily. So you'll see a lot of him doing more of the same of what you saw last year, provided he's healthy. And I think this is one of those more under the radar signings, because guys on special teams, specifically like coverage guys, don't get that much shine anyway. Yeah. But it's a huge phase of the game. I mean, it's one of the 3. So games can be broken wide open on punt returns, kickoff returns, and this is one of the people that eliminates that from happening. And sometimes guys like these make game-saving plays that, like, they show up in the margins. Like sometimes you don't even recognize it. If he's like the last line of defense on a return play, and that saves you from giving the team 7 easy points, and you win the game by a score less than, that's your MVP essentially. They'll never get the credit they deserve for it. But again, he's one of those guys that's really someone that they have to have if they want to be able to shore themselves up in at least that third phase of the game.
Yeah. I don't know defensively how much he's going to contribute, but again, if you can have that kind of depth for a guy that's so vital to their special teams, and as Charger fans, we all know how much special teams can affect a team, even if they have a number one offense or defense. So having a good special teams is definitely really important, and getting a guy back like Delshon Phillips is key.
You had to mention the number one offense and defense.
I don't know how you don't. I mean, it feels like it's burned into all of our brains.
A long-suffering Charger
about how bad special teams could really be, and how much it could really hurt you. All right, so then let's talk about some offensive line signings. So they first signed Trevor Penning. They re-signed him to a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. It maxes out at $4.5 million. And this signing happens, and we could probably just do this together, Craig. I was just thinking like these two names together, because they signed Trevor Penning, and you go, you know what? They traded for him. It's nice depth, as long as Trey Pipkins is not on this roster. And then maybe less than 24 hours. I don't know how it felt like a second later, Trey Pipkins gets re-signed, and it's for more. It's like 2 years, $10 million. And it can get a max value of $12 million. And I can't for the life of me tell you how much I dislike having Trey Pipkins on this team. It was finally the year to get rid of this dead weight on this offensive line, and they decided to bring him back, not just like short term, but possibly longer term to 2 years. I mean, if they would have given the contract to Trevor Penning of 2 years, I would have been okay with it. I mean, I would have been fine, but to put so much stock into Trevor Penning, who isn't very good and hasn't really proved that he's any good. But if he's your swing tackle, then you're okay. But then if you sign Trey Pipkins and say, hey man, I think he might be a swing tackle, or we're going to try him out of guard. I mean, I got a lot of thoughts on this offensive line, and I know we'll get to it. And I feel like we keep teasing that a little bit, but I don't see an upside as signing Trey Pipkins. I know offensive line is hard to find, and it's like you can't have enough offensive line, but you can't have enough bad offensive line. And if you're going to keep bringing back bad offensive linemen, it's not going to help you. I mean, just having traffic cones at offensive line isn't going to help Justin Herbert. It's not going to help Amari and Hampton, who you drafted in the first round last year. Trey Pipkins brings no value to this team other than a warm body on the offensive line. You cannot tell me that this offense, with a new offensive line coach, the Trey Pipkins will all of a sudden become serviceable. That's just not going to happen. It's so far in the rear view. This signing is so disappointing. It almost washes out all the good signings they've made, because this guy clearly is a problem for this offensive line. And there is so much like baked in trauma with Trey Pipkins that you're bringing him back for us all to relive it for 2 more seasons. And I just can't do it, man. I there's times where I've been like, I'm done, man. And Trey Pipkins getting re-signed was just kind of one of those moments.
This is my personal hell. Twofold. Trevor Penning.
We have to defend Trevor Penning. That's how bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And coming from me, this is why it sucks, especially for me, because I was the biggest Trevor Penning hater the year that he came out. I wanted no parts of that dude. I wanted him to stay as far away from my team as possible. And then lo and behold, he ended up on my hometown team, the Saints. So I thought that was funny. And I'm thinking, okay, we're just going to keep him away from the Chargers. And then we trade a pick to go get him. Like, that's how far we were in dire straits, that we had to go ask Trevor Penning to come in and potentially try to be our savior because our offensive line fell apart last year. So great. Okay, we got Trevor Penning. It is what it is. And I wasn't shocked that they re-signed him. I'm like, okay, you traded a pick for him. I get that schematically because there's a trend here in the type of guys that they've picked up. If anyone's paid attention, and even Pipkins fits in this mold. We'll talk about that in a second. But that was one thing. But then, and Garrett and I were talking about this before we hopped on. I just got back from Vegas. I spent 4 nights there, and I didn't go to sleep one night before 3 a.m. I'm 42, folks. That ain't my bag anymore. But I'll tell you this. I think that news happened right before I went, and I didn't think about it for 4 days. And then when I hopped on the plane to fly back and I looked at my phone, I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and start reviewing stuff for the show we're doing. Oh, hell, Trey Pipkins is still on my team. And then all of the depression flowed right back. The 4 nights of fun I just had, completely just over it, totally out of the picture now. Now I have to deal with Trey Pipkins being a part of my team again. And here is the problem. And this is how they explain it away. He's a utility offensive lineman who can play both tackle spots and guard. Now, he can't do it well, but he's capable of doing it. He's done okay in pinches. And then there was actually, I mean, of course, there was a contract year where he was like average at best, but still better than what he had been. So the dude's basically a con man. And lo and behold, he's still here. Sorry, my dog's going crazy in the background. Lo and behold, he's still on my team. And now I have to watch him potentially get on the field at the same time as Trevor Penning, depending on how things go going into the season. I can't imagine a worse scenario as a Chargers fan, but specifically one who cannot stomach the thought of either of these gentlemen being on my team. But the fact that I would rather Trevor Penning than Trey Pipkins tells you all you need to know about how far we've fallen. And this, in fact, has to be football hell.
Yeah, man, this is the bad place. I don't want to be here. But here we are with Trey Pipkins on this roster once again. All right. So, we'll get into the offensive line, obviously, because it's going to be a big topic that we're going to need to touch on. But let's go through some of these internal free agents because there's kind of a bunch of quick hitters here. They re-signed Trey Lance to a 1-year deal. Personally, Trey Lance does not feel like a serviceable NFL quarterback, but is a backup quarterback. I don't care if Justin Herbert gets hurt. Season's over anyway. So I mean, it's a wrap. The team is absolutely cooked if Justin Herbert isn't part of it. And if I got to see Trey Lance, then then we're talking about tanking and draft picks at that point. So I don't really particularly love Trey Lance, but I also don't really care all that much about having I would like to have a better backup quarterback, but at this point, Trey Lance is what he is. And I just hope that we get a better look at some of these receivers and tight ends in the preseason with Trey Lance than we did last year.
He's got history with Mike McDaniel with the 49ers. So that's why it makes sense to me. Clearly it didn't work out all that well for him anyway, but maybe the second time around, I don't know. I don't know what it does. Again, it's just familiarity. Hopefully he never has to see the field, but I guess if he does, at least there's that. He already understands the type of system, so maybe it helps him. Who knows? But yeah, we don't need to spend another minute on
that. Then they signed cornerback Dean Leonard to a 1-year, $2 million deal. You got depth at corner with Leonard, and then also the special teams value, which we talked about with Phillips. To me, this feels like a good signing as kind of a your 52nd, 53rd guy on the roster to help you at DB depth, but also helping contribute on special teams.
Yep, mainly special teams guy, but someone that we saw as a developmental corner for the last few years. And when he's been on the field, he's been fine. Like he dealt with some injuries, kind of set him back. But I mean, I'm not mad at Leonard being back. I didn't expect that he would be, to be completely honest with you, but I was kind of pleasantly surprised that they did bring him back. Again, someone who's a high-level contributor on special teams, and if he ends up having to give you some defensive snaps, then you don't feel like he'll be a complete liability. So win-win.
So then you move on to the long snapper, Josh Harris, which you never get excited about a special team signing, but man, when you watch a different long snapper for a few weeks in a row, you really value a guy like Josh Harris, who obviously was absolutely perfect when he came on after injury.
aside from Cameron Dicker, this is your MVP on teams, as far as I'm concerned. No disrespect to any of the other guys that we've talked about here today, but yeah, we saw what that looked like without him, and I never want to return to those days. So keep him around as long as humanly possible.
Okay, absolutely. I'm happy about it. Then they kind of did like a sneaky re-sign of some internal guys. It was a cluster of 3. It was Kamani Vidal, Jarrett Patterson, and the safety Kendall Williamson. Now, feels like re-signing Vidal and Patterson is okay as your as some depth on your running back group. But then they made a signing in free agency, and you almost think like Kamani Vidal is kind of getting pushed further down this depth chart because they made a pretty nice signing in terms of a external free agent, which we'll get to in a moment. But feels like now you got Vidal and Patterson probably fighting out for a 3-4 RB spot.
Yeah, so Patterson, they like Patterson for what he brings as a no-nonsense runner. And I get it. He's just one of those glue guys. So I understand that. Vidal, the funny part there is that as someone who was a bigger fan of his coming out of Troy, he kind of wasn't even supposed to be on the roster initially last year, but he fought his way back. But I mean, of course, you had to deal with a bunch of injuries, things of that nature. There were a lot of different things that helped him elevate. But when he got on the field, he made a difference. There were some games that they really had to ride Vidal in order to pull some of those off, because the running game was almost inept. Like when you look at Hampton going down and him coming into the season ending up having to be your RB1
because
unexpected. I mean, because a guy blew his eye out and then his knee, and was it Achilles? Yeah, whatever. The guy who never gets hurt blows his face half off and then blows up his leg. Who would have guessed it? So Chargers. But yeah, Vidal shows
still
up on the scene.
Signed, by the way, still a free agent.
This is true.
Yeah.
I personally, I think he should sign with the Lions. That kind of makes sense to me, but this ain't a Lions show.
Okay.
I think that Vidal finds himself in an interesting situation because there's still potential for him to be a part of a 3-headed backfield. And in some instances, it makes a lot of sense because the other guy that we talk about is a major liability in pass protection, and Vidal was much better there this year. So I don't think he's going to find himself struggling to make a difference. Yeah, the touches may end up being a bit more sparse, but I think there's an opportunity for all 3 of those guys to see action. Specifically because when we get to talking about this person who was an external signing, there was an injury situation that they had to go through. So it's almost hedging. There'll be opportunities for all 3 with Amarion being your lead back, but I do see Vidal, and I'll just go ahead and say it, Keaton Mitchell, being guys who I wouldn't say split backup snaps, but I think there'll be an occasion for each of them. So I think it's also a good problem to have when you have 3 different options. All 3 of them have different running styles, and they pretty much all complement each other, to be completely honest.
Yeah, so they'll kind of battle it out to see if they keep 4 running backs or 3 running backs. But yeah, Kamani was kind of on and off all season. We talked about how he was good one week and then was bad the next, and then good the next. And it just kept flip-flopping each week that he had to jump in as a starter. But Jarrett Patterson was the guy who had to carry the load when Kamani just couldn't hang in games where he struggled. So, I'm good with having those 2 as the kind of 3-4 on the spot right now. Kendall Williamson as some depth at safety is fine with me as well. But today they re-signed Unk. Tony Jefferson gets re-signed for 1 year, $2 million.
Welcome back, Unk.
Yeah. A guy who was go ahead.
I was gonna say that got almost seemingly pretty contentious online for a little bit while on Twitter. He was making his feelings known. And usually when that happens, the guy doesn't get re-signed.
Right.
So it felt like he was almost talking his way out of it, but the dude put enough on tape here to prove, he didn't have to say anything. The play on the field spoke for itself. When he was on the field, big plays happen. I know, for what it's worth, I know a lot of people out there look at PFF grades, things of that nature, but they don't have him as conceding a single touchdown last year. Well, he gave up 1. It happened in the Texans game, and he even admitted to it. But aside from that, rock solid. Another 30 34-year-old dude who is out there playing. He in no way looks like his age or what you would expect a 34-year-old guy that plays in the secondary, like a skill
Yeah.
position, to look like. So he's not giving up a bunch of plays. He's still coming downhill like a monster and laying people out like
Yeah.
certain wide receiver, Kansas City, who we're not going to say he earned it. Nah, hell yeah, he earned it. He got his bell rung, and good on him. We'll see where his career goes moving forward. I could care less because he's a dirtbag. I'm not even going to say his name, but
No.
really put him on the deck in a game, and I loved every second of it. I just think that the passion that he plays with Jefferson is another one of those people who leads not just by like the rah-rah, but the play on the field, and guys feel like they need to measure up to his level. So you can't have enough of those dudes who aren't just out there as mascots, but cats who can still lay it all in the line and be difference makers on your team. And he does that. Also, what he does is maybe spares you from having to spend one of your now only 5 draft picks on a safety, which different show, but I keep seeing people saying like how desperately we need safety. And I'm like, well, I can think of a couple names that are already on the roster that are regular contributors. And then also if they re-sign Jefferson, that's not as much of a need. But I love the fact that he's back, leadership on the field, and also as a vocal leader as well. The passion he plays with, the fact that he hates all the same teams we do. So I appreciate him having back, and I'm glad that it got worked out without it going completely left, because that was the impression I got for a while, is that it was just going to end really, really poorly, and it was going to be sour milk.
Yeah, he was very vocal about it. But good on him, man. He's the last DB out of his draft class, going from undrafted to the last man standing in 2013. So good on him, and he deserved it, man. He was a important part of this defense. Made some game sealing plays. Really set a tone for the old man. But it felt like another player who made this defense better when he was on the field. I know we thought like, oh man, I can't believe they have Jefferson on the field at times, because we're thinking, at some point Father Time's going to take over. But man, he looks like he went from retired to all of a sudden becoming worthy of bringing back a whole nother year. So I'm happy to have Jefferson back. He's good depth and a real good tone setter for this defense. So that is it for internal free agents. Let's go ahead and move on to external. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. First one is let's talk about the Chargers' new center. Tyler Biadasz signed a 3-year, $30 million deal.
Thank you, Washington Commanders, for whatever reason you clipped him, because I think they potentially saved the Chargers from having to overpay Connor McGovern. And I say Connor McGovern because Tyler Linderbaum got paid $27 million AAV, and I don't think the Chargers were thinking about sniffing that. So when that got to the point of like, hey, we're not playing in that ballpark, and McGovern ends up staying in Buffalo, in order to lure him away, then you're probably going to have to pay him above value to get him. And before we even got free agency all the way kicked off, the Commanders decided to do us a solid. And with this being said, I know how we feel about the rest of the offensive line on the interior, but this was the first piece that had to be fixed. And now you've got like a tone setter. He's smart. He's durable. I mean, I know he had an injury situation last year, but for the majority of his career, he's been someone who's been available. And again, he saved the Chargers for a couple of reasons. We know how the all glorious comp pick formula is one of, our organizations. Well, now with Joe Ortiz is one of the things that they hang their hat on, being able to accumulate those picks. We'll see how that goes moving forward. And also it's a different conversation because I'm getting a little annoyed by that too. But just the stability Biadasz provides. He's not he's been to a couple of, he's not been an all-pro player, but he's been a Pro Bowl player. I know that's kind of like a popularity contest, but the play on the field has shown he's someone that's an above average center in the league. And he continues to do that. Like, he's not quite 30 years old yet. So you're going to get a couple more solid, maybe a few solid seasons out of him. You can bring in a young center to develop behind him. But now that piece should be fixed. And you have to get that taken care of, especially with what the Chargers dealt with the last 2 years at center. So now again, really smart signing by Joe Ortiz and company to bring him in prior to free agency kicking off. And because he was cut, he was able to be signed like right away.
Yep.
And collectively, when you look at this on the whole, like from right before free agency through the first week and a half, 2 weeks to this point, when you look at it all together, it looks better than what I think a lot of people believe in totality, because they took care of the most important piece first and foremost. We'll figure out the rest. But for now, super happy about this. And I believe Justin Herbert was probably like, I mean, when they decided they were going to sign him, I wouldn't be surprised if he and Madison went on a little bit of a bender to celebrate, because I was about this close from doing it myself.
Yeah, it was an exciting signing because they really needed to upgrade the interior of their offensive line, and to get a guy like Biotish over a Linderbaum at a fraction of the price. While you wouldn't say Biotish is like an elite center, he's always been very good. He's always been way above average, and quietly has done it throughout his career. And to get it at, not being able to get it at, what was it, 3 years, 30 million, like 10 mil per, for a guy who, even while playing injured last year, gave up like 3 sacks on almost 1,000 pass snaps. It's going to completely boost the offensive line. He's athletic enough to be in McDaniel's system, but is strong. Is adept at both the run game and the pass game. Like he's one of those kind of just get your job done silently, being one of your anchors of your line type of offensive lineman, which I always adore. So this is not only a really good fit for McDaniel and the offense they want to run. Price-wise, it's great. The comp pick is cool, and all the other stuff that comes with everything that they've done this offseason. But it just feels like this was the right move to make. While they have the money to spend on Linderbaum, at some point you're going to be hogtied with that contract, and it's better the Raiders do it than the Chargers, because it just feels like Linderbaum is, while a really, really good player, is going to, with the money that's tied to him, is going to not outplay that contract. Where you think like a guy like Biotish, which feels like collectively everybody believes is one of the bigger steals of free agency, which, whether you buy any stock in that or not, I happen to believe the same thing. It just feels like, with the type of player you got for the price you got to upgrade your offensive line like you did, it just felt like the perfect fit. And it was a great signing, and I was very happy about it.
Yep, no complaints over here. And again, Washington Commanders, you're the real MVP.
All right, let's talk about a big one that happened on the offensive line, and I guess a literally big defensive lineman, Dalvin Tomlinson, signs with the Chargers a 1-year, $7.5 million deal. It's $6 million fully guaranteed, and I cannot be happier about this signing. And a lot of people on Twitter are pretty upset because the PFF numbers were on decline, and they just don't feel like he's the same player he was. But it just feels like this was another underrated signing. The staff did it with Poona Ford. They did it with T.R. Tart. Dalvin Tomlinson, skill-wise, is head and shoulders above both those players. So the potential of a Dalvin Tomlinson in the system could really, really, really pay dividends in this defense. My only concern is the man at the helm, who was part of turning these kind of tossed aside players, even like Christian Fulton and Poona Ford and T.R. Tart and Dante Jackson, and turning them into, back to their prime positions, is now the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. So I hope in this system they're still able to thrive, but just with this current coaching staff, the potential of a Dalvin Tomlinson in the middle of your defense is just feels like the perfect fit for that middle of that defense.
Man, you could bring Fat Albert in to play defensive tackle. As long as Mike Elston is coaching the defensive lineman, I'm buying it. So, like, personally, Poona Ford, T.R. Tart, you saw the performances there, and yeah, I get it. You lose Jesse Minter, that's your play caller, that's your scheme guy. But the guy that got these guys to play up to the level they needed to is still a part of this team. And I think he's actually one of the unsung heroes of not just the staff, but the organization in general, because of the way that he's elevated the play of these defensive linemen. And the fact that Tomlinson's coming off of a down year is perfect, because the difference between Tart, and Puna Ford is going to be age. He's older than both of them, but he's going to be asked to do a very different thing, or actually he's going to be asked to do something that Tart was asked to do, but Tart isn't necessarily built to do it full time. Tomlinson finally gives them the true two gap in space eater that they've lacked for a long time. Like the true nose tackle that they need. He's going to make life easier for Tart, Aboigbe, Caldwell, and for sure Deion Henley and whoever lines up beside him on the second level, because this is going to be the cleanest they've ever been kept in the running game, and they'll be able to access the backfield easier on blitz opportunities as well. Tomlinson, surprisingly, a few years ago, I think when he was in Cleveland, he was also an upfield penetrator also. I don't expect to see a lot of that, but then again, nothing would surprise me. If the dude reverts back to his play from 2-3 years ago, I wouldn't be shocked at all, because again, something about these guys playing under Mike Elston seems to cure everything that ails them. So I think this is going to end up being a huge difference. This is going to make a huge difference on the defense because of everything that he creates for everyone around him. So being a nose tackle, specifically one who has to hold up against double teams, can be a very thankless job, because you don't really get to reap the benefits of it. It's everyone around you that does. So don't be surprised if you see guys have even better years, like Justin Aboigbe, who's ascending, like Caldwell, who's a rookie last year, and especially Tierra Tart, because they're going to be able to be freed up to do more on the interior. So again, probably a signing that doesn't get as much attention as it should, but you're going to see a major difference in the running game next year, because you also know this defense likes to play light boxes. So you have to have someone who's stout on the interior that can take up 2 blocks and hold up against those double teams.
And as much as, and I know we'll get to this again, but as much as Charger fans wanted to re-sign Deshaun Hand, you almost kind of like dismiss it because of a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson. When you got a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson to add to the middle, and you lose a guy like Deshaun Hand, you just kind of like shrug your shoulders, like who cares at this point? And another guy who was tossed aside in this, Elston was a guy that made Deshaun Hand pretty serviceable with the Chargers. So yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be huge for him, and also we got to remember what defensive line he's playing for. That Cardinals front office team, everybody is a mess. So I'm not too concerned about it, but man, getting him on a 1-year deal, you kind of get to see what you have in him, kind of kick the tires a little bit, and I think it's the perfect fit for this defense.
Agreed.
So let's move on to tight end. They signed tight end Charlie Kolar, Lightning Round podcast favorite during the draft season. I think Jamie wanted to trade for him at one point during one of the podcasts. But Chargers finally get him. 3 years, $24.3 million, including $17 million guaranteed.
Jamie, we did it, man. I put it in the Discord. Jamie and I were having a conversation last Halloween. Charlie Kolar, I think it was Thursday Night Football, scored a touchdown, and we texted each other about it. And I said, just hold out hope, man. Got Joe Ortiz, and he's almost near the end of his rookie deal. There's still hope. And lo and behold,
I remember the conversation being, why do the Ravens have all the tight ends?
Because they were tight end hoarders. And maybe that'll be a Chargers thing now moving forward. Who knows? But we're talking about, understand, someone who's a big body. He actually has very reliable hands, and he's like going to be a red zone utility guy. Like, he was severely underutilized in Baltimore because he was in fact buried behind Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. Now it's just Mark Andrews, and I don't know who the hell else they have at this point.
That whole mess.
And that Max Crosby thing. Anyway, there's some foolishness going on in Baltimore. But look, even though he's a great inline blocker, we know Charlie Kolar can do that. he's also not a dead giveaway in the running game the way, say, like Will Disley was, like on short
Mhm.
yardage and in the red zone, because Kohler can realistically and regularly be weaponized in the passing game to complement Arondé Gaston. So trust me, when we were looking at him coming out of Iowa State, we were not fans of his because of his run blocking prowess. I mean, he showed that he could do a little bit of it there, but we liked him in the passing game. It's just that he didn't get a ton of opportunities in Baltimore. And then when he was on the field, it was more so to be almost like an extra lineman in the blocking game. He improved on his run blocking and his receiving took a back seat. Well, now it's probably going to, the Chargers are going to reap the benefits of that because he's grown as a blocker and his ability as a receiver is still there. So now you're talking about not having to wait your turn to get on the field as the third tight end. You're going to be working alongside someone who's a primary pass catching threat in Gadsden. And this is someone who can be used for both. And when you're talking about lining up in two tight end sets and being able to deploy both of them, and then also still being able to run the ball by the same token, it's going to help this offense in so many different ways. They're going to be able to be super multiple. And again, it's these signings that football nerds look at and they like love, but
Yeah, yeah.
to kind of like the casual football fan, they look at this and like, well, this dude was the third tight end in Baltimore. He couldn't even get on the field. Well, it's just because they were greedy with tight ends. It had nothing to do with his ability. Kohler can play. Just wait and see. I would not be surprised if he's a regular part of the offense next year. And I'm not going to say becomes a household name, but becomes a Charger favorite amongst the fan base.
Yeah, and it felt like early in Baltimore, uh Kolar was kind of like slowly being thrown into the offense, and they were slowly bringing him on. And each year in Baltimore, more receiving yards came, more snaps came, more blocking snaps came, and it just felt like he became more successful, and a guy that just started to ascend in his career. And again, being buried behind two different tight ends did not help his cause in terms of, if you're looking at the stat sheet, but it's the versatility and the toughness that Mike McDaniels is going to want in this new scheme. It is, we're talking about being like run heavy in this new system. Again, if you haven't watched the podcast about Mike McDaniel, Craig and I went in depth about what he's like and what that system's like, and all the important stuff in that McDaniel scheme. So go watch that when you're done with this. But this is the perfect fit in terms of a tight end, because if you've got Gaston and Kolar on the field, you kind of think like one's gonna be running routes, the other one's gonna be blocking. But Kolar brings the versatility enough that he can block his ass off, but also can be a receiving weapon as well. So to be able to have those two on the field a lot more is going to really help this offense, because it gives them so many options, and it makes them so versatile and hard to guard in terms of who you got to pick. And it's kind of like a pick your poison type of scenario when you have Kolar on the field, because you just don't know what he's going to do. But a great fit to a player that, again, while you feel like, quietly he, didn't get a ton of yards. I don't think he had more than like 200 yards in a single season. I don't even think he had more than 150 yards in a season, to be honest with you. But when you look at that, you think like, oh man, this is like, what are they doing and why they sign him long term? But when you really watch Kolar throughout the years, as much as we have, because we were such big fans of him. I know you and Jamie were ahead of that train, but obviously I was a pretty big fan, just not as much as you guys, but still love the player. And so while we're all watching like, man, Charlie Kolar would have been nice, and watching him throughout the years and then seeing him become better and better and better, you just feel like you're starting to sign a guy just starting to climb that peak a little bit. So to me, it feels like a lot of these contracts in terms of Tomlinson and in terms of Biotish so far and Kolar, it's like, maybe it's not the sexy names that you want and not the like big bright lights and not going to like sell a bunch of tickets. But when you look at where these guys serve in terms of the end of their contract, all three of these guys are almost guaranteed to outplay their contract and the money they're given this offseason. So it just feels like these are all very smart signing. While it's not flashy or splashy, it is. It fits the offense perfectly for Kolar. Same with Biotish, and then Dalvin Tomlinson being able to be that run stuff in the middle is just, I mean, it just feels like those three are home runs right there, even without being, household names.
Absolutely. And these are those smart signings that, again, they don't draw a ton of fanfare for everyone looking for big name signings, but they end up being huge difference makers and paying dividends in the ways that matter when you get into the season. And we're talking about guys who like doing the dirty work. He's one of those like psychos who doesn't mind lining up and just continuously going after guys in the run game as a blocker. So you need a few of those nuts on your team.
Absolutely. Okay, so then they've signed and a guy that Joe Ortiz is familiar with, Charlie Kolar, helped draft him, and then another guy he helped draft is Keaton Mitchell, the running back, signed a 2-year, $9.25 million deal, $5 million of it fully guaranteed.
Human C4. All the puns intended. All right, so let me tell you what is interesting because, Ortiz, I'm sure had a big hand in getting this done. But Mike McDaniel was a much bigger fan of Keaton Mitchell than I think anyone knew. In that video of, I think with Khalil Mack, I think they produced with Khalil Mack got signed. He comes into the building, you see everybody greeting him. Apparently, there was something that Mike McDaniel was holding that was blurred out in the video. Well, come to find out, supposedly, that was actually a poster he created, like a wanted poster, like the old West Style wanted posters with Keaton Mitchell's face on it. And that's why it was blurred out. He wants Keaton Mitchell. We know why. Like, it's very clear and evident because of the speed element. I'm not saying that Keaton Mitchell is going to be Devon Achane. What I'm saying is he's going to be utilized like Devon Achane, but with much less volume. So think of someone who comes in and gives you instant juice. Not just a change of pace guy, like an easy button for explosive plays. Straight up big play merchant, whether it be like screens, swings, even just handing the ball off. And dude's only 5'8", 5'9", like 100, close to 190 pounds, but he runs tough for a little dude. And it's not just the top speed, it's his acceleration. He beats so many angles. Like, if you get caught flat-footed, because there are a few plays that I watched on tape, and you guys can tell I'm super excited about the fact that we have them, because this is one of the things the Chargers have been lacking in general. But just this type of playmaking in out of the backfield is going to be tremendous for what you want to be able to do in this offense, and outside zone, and in the passing game, etc. The way that if you don't take the perfect angle on him, you won't catch him is ridiculous, because his acceleration, his ability to get from 0 to 60 and almost nothing is almost unparalleled. I didn't jot down the notes, but there was something about his average miles per hour that was, I think, was number 1 in the league last year. Like, his average was like 14 something. I think he reached 20 miles per hour, the most of any running back, or was it any back or any player? I don't remember. I didn't write it down. I just saw it in passing. But just pure unadulterated speed. And someone that, if you like the way that Devon Achane was deployed in Miami, just get ready for Keaton Mitchell to be utilized in a similar fashion on similar type plays, but also just not with the level of volume, because, again, he's a smaller guy. He dealt with a pretty serious injury a couple of years ago, so you want to be able to use him sparingly. But this is also twofold. Not only is he going to be in the mix in the running game, but he's also a pretty dynamic returner. So Darius Davis, you might need to count your days, because this is someone who's going to be able to give you what you need in multiple aspects, and you could potentially save a roster spot by not having to keep a guy around that you're not really using much as a receiver and hasn't been giving you much as a return man recently. So I think you potentially, again, killed 2 birds with 1 stone, but I just love the fact that he can be someone who's super electric on an offense that needs more speed infused into it, and he gives you that one play potential to take it to the house every time he touches the ball.
Yeah, Chargers obviously needed more gas in this offense, and Keaton Mitchell is your man in that running back room. Marion Hampton is not that guy, but to be able to add a guy like Mitchell, who, I think he ran a 4.37. He averages almost 6.5 yards per carry in his career. Not a guy that gets volume touches. That is Hampton's role. They have Vidal, we know that. They have Kamani Vidal, and then they have Jarrett Patterson as well. But to add Keaton Mitchell as as some extra juice on that offense is pretty special, and a guy that, I mean, if Mike McDaniel's that excited about getting him, then do what you can to get him. And I'm excited about how they're going to implement him. And it just feels like he's another guy that fits well in the system and is a toy for McDaniel to be playing with, because it just feels like when McDaniel wants speed. And if he went as far as to make a wanted poster, which the chat's saying is from One Piece, if he made a One Piece inspired wanted poster of Keaton Mitchell, then man, you got to imagine that he's got big plans for that guy. So it's not just they signed an RB2/RB3, however you see him. It's more like, hey man, we got plans for you. Isn't it? Because that's what they said when they drafted Gaston, right? They were like, we've got plans for you. This feels like one of those situations. Like Gaston was drafted and you're like, oh, okay. A late tight end, and maybe he'll fit in, who knows, but then he becomes a more of a receiving option. This feels like one of those players who gets in and is going to get probably more carries than we expect, and get a lot more in the passing game as well.
And again, like, I know I've seen a lot of people saying, and you can just tell, it's people who don't really pay attention. Everybody's just looking for a joke to tell. Oh God, they're just like stealing Baltimore Ravens players. Well, no, again, yes, there's a Joe Ortiz connection here. Same way with Kolar. But again, Mike McDaniel really, really wanted Keith Mitchell. So it's just coincidence here. Like it's the stars perfectly aligned on this one. So it's the type of player that the offense needs to be infused with, because as you mentioned, Amari Hampton has some juice, but he's a bigger, stronger, more powerful running back, straight line speed guy. Keaton's got more wiggle, and when we're talking about like explosive speed, like, again, you can't get caught flat-footed, you can't take bad angles, or you're going to pay for it with like a 50-60 yard house call. So again, really, really excited to have this kind of gas in the backfield.
All right, so we've got two more external free agents. First up, let's talk about fullback Alec Ingold, who signed a 2-year, $7.5 million deal. I think this just tells us that the Matlock experience is over, which I could not be more happy about. And hopefully he can contribute on defense, I guess.
Maybe. I mean, does he even remember how to play it at this point?
I don't know.
I mean, he turned into basically a full-time fullback, and
I don't want to turn this into a Matlock bash fest, but it's happy that he's not there.
I mean, listen, one of the things that excites me the most is not having to watch that dude have to pretend to be an athlete motioning in the backfield or crossing the formation. That was ugly.
Yeah.
But with Ingold, again, this tells you everything about the offensive identity moving forward. Ingold, also a tone setter. He's physical as a run blocker, but he's versatile, and he's going to be like a perfect fit for a more balanced offensive attack, because they're going to want to beat you vertically and horizontally. And that dude was in motion a crap ton last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I forget what percentage of his snaps he was on the field that they actually motioned him out, but they use him as eye candy. And it's not just to motion him to get him out to block. They'll motion him and put him out in routes. He's got really solid hands and can run after the catch. So he's someone that's going to be an added weapon on the offense. It's not just a body that nobody really has to account for. It's not just this lumbering player that all you have to do is sidestep him when he's coming to block you at the second or third level. This is someone who can either run through your face and plant you into the ground as a blocker, or he can come out, stalk, like pretend like he's going to block you. He can set you up, like position you for a block, and then go out and release into a route, or he can just be sent out into the flat. They've handed him the ball in short yardage situations in the past also. So it's someone that you're going to have to account for. When you're talking about having to really pay attention to every skilled player on the field, he forces you to have to stress the defense to pay attention to him as well. With Matlock, that was never really a thing. I know every once in a while they threw him a couple of passes because it was completely unexpected. But with this guy, someone like Alec Ingold, you have to account for him, because he's not just going to, again, be lining up to block someone. He's going to have opportunities to potentially put points on the board or convert first downs on those short yardage situations where you can put him out in the route and no one's actually paying attention to him because they're thinking about all the regulatory options, say like in the passing game, or in Amari and Hampton on short yardage situations. So he's going to be dangerous in this offense also.
If you're looking for a tone setter to pair with Kolar, it feels like Ingold is just your man. One of the top fullbacks in the NFL, a former Pro Bowler who really helped spark the Miami offense, which was like number one in the league in 2023. Which, if you loved having Mike McDaniel as OC, you need key pieces to that. And Alec Ingold is one of those guys who was key in that offense. And while you don't need to replicate every single player in that offense in 2026, you do know that you need to improve at fullback. There was it was almost laughable to have Scott Matlock back there. To have him catch passes was even worse. Somehow worse than watching this offensive line, by the way. But now Matlock maybe can contribute at defensive line. I'm not sure, but to have a real veteran presence and a real dog as a fullback is important, especially in this Mike McDaniel offense, who they're going to want to run downhill and they're going to want to be physical. And if you got Kolar and you've got Ingold running right behind him, you're going to open up some lanes for a guy like Hampton. And they really needed to help Hampton out because it just felt like if you spent the first round pick on him, at some point you're going to have to help him out. And if the focal point is running downhill like McDaniel likes to do, then this is your guy. And you're going to want a guy like Alec Ingold on offense. So, as a pass protector, he's really good in the backfield. As a run blocker, he's great. And you know that he's got the hands. He's a former Pro Bowler and led the league just, 2 seasons ago. So, we obviously watched Ingold as the Raiders fullback, so we're all pretty familiar with him, a real physical player, and I'm happy to have him on the other side and hopefully a key part of this offense like he was in Miami.
Petition to make Scott Matlock change his number also. You can't be 290 pounds wearing 44. Let's not do that anymore.
We tried that already. He hasn't done it, but
well, I mean, now if he's not going to be playing fullback at all, then
right, he's got to get in the 90s.
I would assume.
Yeah,
I hope.
Yeah. I don't. To be honest with you, you can remove every number in the 40s and just keep 43 because that's the only good looking number, and it's got to be some kind of running back receiver. I just think like Darren Sproles in 43 was nice.
Well, I liked 44. Didn't Kaiser White wear 44?
Yeah, but come on, man. A linebacker wearing 44?
Yeah. I mean, Nwosu wore 42. That looked good on him.
It did not.
40.
Get rid of it. Nope.
I liked it.
43. 43, and we're done. All right, the last external free agent is the guard, Cole Strange. Signs a 2-year, $13 million contract. It was $9 million guaranteed. Tell me about your feelings on this signing.
Does that explain it?
Listen,
man. Okay. Listen.
It's a podcast. We're all listening.
Okay, no. I get it. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to do the thing.
Yeah.
Here we go. If they had not signed Cole Strange last week, he'd still be available today. That's how bad Cole Strange is. No one was rushing to get Cole Strange. And this brings me back to what I think is being lost overall. Jim Harbaugh said he wanted a head coach of the offense. So this means this has Mike McDaniel written all over it. And I understand. He played with McDaniel last year. I think it was his first year playing right guard. So they're probably going to make every excuse in the book for him. But this is what it boils down to me as. Cole Strange is not a very good offensive lineman. I think we can all agree there. But what he brings is something that I mentioned or I alluded to earlier with the other offensive linemen that were brought back. They all fit a mold. They're all high-level athletes for the position. So it feels to me, because clearly, apparently, Mike McDaniel doesn't quote-unquote value the guard position. He's just looking for guys that can move in space. Because they're going to be a lot of pulling. They're going to have to get out and get to the second level. They might at times have to reach the third level in the running game. So when you're looking at running these stretch concepts and getting guys on the move a ton, you have to have people who can move their feet. They may not necessarily be the best blockers, but essentially you just kind of need them to get in the way. Your key pieces are going to be your centers and your tackles. So this is 1,000% a Mike McDaniel move because, again, Had they not signed this man, he would still be available right now for the taking if they needed him, which is what frustrates me about it, because you probably could have put that money, well, you could have put that money elsewhere with someone more viable. But this is just free agency. We still have the draft coming up. As a player, I have virtually nothing good to say about him except he's athletic. Nothing that I saw on tape about him was impressive. I didn't like him coming out. I mean, was he Tennessee Chattanooga guy? I think he pretty much got owned at the Senior Bowl, and it was all about his testing numbers that people got super excited about. But it just had materialized, and for the Patriots to take that man in the first round, that didn't seem like a Patriots thing to do to me at the time. But I felt like if anyone could fix him and make him work, they'd be able to do it. Now he's a Charger, and all you can hope is that this ultimately ends up being depth. But to be completely honest, if they signed him that early for what they signed him for, it feels like they're probably going to try him out there as a starting right guard. So God, please in heaven, somebody ensure the Chargers get a solid left guard. Because if you're telling me that they just have to cover up Cole Strange in between an above average center and a future all pro in Joe Alt, then they can probably make that work. It's not my preference. Maybe they want to spend their money elsewhere. But as far as the player, I got nothing super positive to say other than he knows the system and he's athletic. You can have at it now. I'm done.
I don't know why this feels like the Trey Pipkins signing. Like what? Butch Berry had his chance to fix Cole Strange last season, and he didn't. He wasn't good. So why, when Berry comes over to the Chargers, do you bring a guy like Cole Strange with you? What upside is that? You got to see him. I mean, the Dolphins' offensive line was terrible. So why are we rotating from terrible to terrible? I don't have anything good to say about the signing either. I have a lot of thoughts on the offensive line. I don't have a scenario where I believe Cole Strange is a starting right guard in the NFL at this moment. He feels more like a utility interior guy. I coming on here, I had thoughts, but I just feel like it's a moot point. He's not a good player. I don't have anything good to say. Patriots obviously reached on him. I mean, that clip about the Rams laughing in the draft room when they didn't have a first round pick, and they were talking about, he was a day 3 guy to them. I mean, if he's a depth signing, that's great. But I mean, at this point, you're looking at a starting offensive line with Trevor Penning at left guard and Cole Strange at right guard.
Potentially. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm hoping that it doesn't happen. But right now, I have a hard time believing Cole Strange isn't going to be the starting right guard. The fact that they went after him so quickly, like, why do you have to have him? Why'd you just have to go get Cole Strange? And why was he a priority signing? That's my question. If it was just going to be a depth thing, I don't think anyone was beating down his door.
No.
So, I mean, yeah, I don't. Again, this is totally a Mike McDaniel thing.
If I'm hoping out of all hope, you look at this offensive line and you see, and now we're just moving on to, we haven't talked about departures, but when you look at this roster and you see Branson Taylor and Josh Kaltenberger, is that the kid's name? And Ben Cleveland, you're not really saying, that's pretty good depth so far.
Mm-hmm.
If you add Cole Strange to that mix as depth, then you're saying that's actually not bad depth. So if the plan is to get 2 guards, starting caliber guards, which are not Trevor Penning or Cole Strange or Trey Pipkins or Branson Taylor or Ben Cleveland or Josh Kaltenberger, then you're okay with this signing. But I would say it is I was going to say strange signing. It's a weird signing if you're saying he's the right guard and he's starting on this offensive line. But I feel like we gotta hold off on that conversation because we gotta talk about some of these departures.
Hold on, one more thing really quickly.
Okay.
And I gotta call this out because it's what's most annoying to me.
Okay.
This isn't a team that can bank on like best case roster scenarios. Like this is the same team that last year was missing 3 of his key pieces in Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt, and Amari Hampton, having like all missed significant time in their young pro careers with injuries after being complete Ironmen in college, where not one of them missed a single game due to injury. So you're telling me you chose not to solidify your interior offensive line with good players because you're thinking that, or you can just plug maybe 1 or 2 of these guys in, surrounded by all this other talent that you have no reason to believe will stay 100% healthy next year based on just what happened last year and the year prior. You're willing to bank on those guys being healthy with crap players in between them and hope that nothing happens to them to where you're not then stuck with them on the field. Essentially the same situation you ended up in last year, basically.
Yes. And yeah, I've got more thoughts on that, and we're going to get to that. But let's talk about departures. So first off, we mentioned Odafe Oweh signed a 4-year, $100 million deal with the Commanders, which the Commanders offseason is crazy. Mm-hmm. They spent so much money on just like mid players. Whatever. Not my team. But so we both wanted Oweh back.
Yep.
Would you have signed him to a 4-year, $100 million deal?
Hell no.
Okay. All right.
No, I mean, I spoke to this earlier. He'd be a part of a rotation. Is he an ascending player? Potentially. Or did he benefit from being in this defense? We'll find out, now that he's a member of the Commanders, whether or not the level of play continues to go up or if he regresses. But if you're telling me 4 years, $100 million for a guy who you can't necessarily keep on the field for all 3 downs, that's a pretty penny to be paying for essentially what amounts to a rotational player. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Oweh because I absolutely wanted him back. But at that number, you can have him.
Yeah, no, he was a great second, third option. And when they were able to kind of rotate him in and out was when he was at his best. If you're talking about playing him for 3 downs, it just doesn't make sense at that price range. Good player. And if the Chargers could have got him at, a fraction of that, then that would have made sense. But I get why they wouldn't have re-signed a dude for 4-year, $100 million deal, which for a player who hasn't proved to be anywhere near healthy throughout his career. So I would say keep that money, use it to re-sign Thule, who definitely deserves to be re-upped very soon. Next one, Zion Johnson, former starting left guard, signs a 3-year, $49.5 million contract with the Cleveland Browns. Fans wanted Zion. I am so happy he is gone.
I gotten to the point where I just assumed he was going to be back, so I mentally prepared myself for it. But what I was really going to be upset about was if they paid that dude anywhere in the $18 to $20 million range. That was going to be nuts. And maybe that was just an agent thing because, what is he getting, 16.5 AAV, something like that? So that's around the range I assumed he would get paid. Not assumed he would because all the talk said it would be more. I definitely didn't want him back at 18 to 20 mil. If it was something along the lines of 15 to 16, I could stomach it, but only because it felt like they really liked him, especially with his performances towards the end of the year. And then you consider getting Slater back, and then you got Biotish and having him finally playing between 2 solid players. Maybe he takes that next step. And then at that point, you're not having to worry about 2 guard positions. You got this one with a guy that, maybe has an opportunity to continue to grow, shows that he can be decent. And then you just figure out the right guard position. I'm not mad about the fact that he's gone. The only thing, again, now at this point that's frustrating me is the fact that they haven't gotten anyone better to replace him at this point. And you're going into a draft with only 5 draft picks and you're pigeonholing yourself. So, I mean, we'll still get to see what they do here for the rest of the time going into April, but it's pretty much slim pickings at this point. I guess I'm not crying over Zion not being back, but I also would have liked to have had him back to not have to now know that they're probably going to have to spend 2 high-ish picks on the guard position as things stand today.
Yeah. And we got to talk about that. Tito Ogbonnia signed with the Cowboys, 1 year, $3 million deal. Kind of low signing, but a guy that just never really panned out. Not really worth the bones here.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were talking him up this past offseason as having a really solid camp, and I think he was dealing with more injuries again. Nothing really materialized. To be completely honest with you, if you had mentioned him, I wouldn't have thought about it. So good luck to you, man.
Yeah. And, Deshaun Hand obviously leaving. Again, I kind of mentioned it. Didn't feel like it really stings all that much. Good play, was good enough as a rotational guy, but when you sign a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson, it just takes the sting out of it a little bit.
Yeah. So this one before Tomlinson signing, because I understand the rationale behind it now. But Hand was probably outside of Mack the best defensive lineman, defensive player in the front against the run. In the games when he wasn't around, you could definitely see or feel a difference in it. And I mean, he's a pretty solid athlete, on the interior from that 4-eye position. But when you see the Tomlinson signing, you realize that they needed that bigger interior body, and it kind of makes Hand a little moot with regard to where his role would be on the field. Kind of now, like, you don't necessarily need to have Hand because you have this true nose tackle who's going to already make things easier for the rest of your guys on the defensive line. So he ends up being the odd man out. I would have loved to have had him back. I don't even think he's getting paid that much in Atlanta. I think he signed another 1-year deal, and it was for looks like almost pennies. So from a rotational standpoint, would have been cool to have all those bodies in a rotation. Yeah. But again, if they have a plan moving forward for how they want to position the defense and you want to continue to play these lighter boxes, they absolutely needed to have someone who would be a centerpiece in the middle of that defense and someone who's immovable. And unfortunately, Hand kind of had to suffer the consequences for that. So looking forward to see where his career goes. I really liked him as a player. His brother was really fun on Twitter too, because he was you talk about spilling the tea. Champ was on there giving it up. So those were fun times. Sucks that that's over now, but yeah, it would have been cool to have him back, but I understand why they didn't after the Tomlinson signing.
And to get more snaps for Justin Oboigbe and Jamari Caldwell is a good thing, and it's kind of addition by subtraction here. Obviously, like Deshaun Hand, was a fan of the signing and his play last year, but it is okay with it when you see what they ended up doing. And it was a 1-year, $3 million deal for Deshaun Hand in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Next up, Jamari Salyer goes to the Dolphins. A player I would have paid the extra money for to have instead of Penny and Pipkins. This feels like the better fit. You want a rotational interior lineman, and that can also play on the outside. I mean, Jamari Salyer's always been your guy. He outperformed both of those guys last year, Penning and Pipkins, and yet somehow they chose the wrong two and let Salyer walk. Now, we're talking about depth guys, but Jamari Salyer deserves a roster spot over those two. And somehow here we are where, I don't know, they're trading offensive linemen, and I'm lost with the Salyer signing.
It all points back to the same thing for me, and it's Mike McDaniel's scheme fit for the type of offensive lineman he wants. So Salyer is best at left tackle, which makes no sense from his build, his stature, the way he's put together. He seems like he would be the perfect guard, except he doesn't play guard well at all. He's not really a right tackle, but he has been a serviceable left tackle. What's confusing to me is it's not necessarily that they didn't re-sign him. again, I'm not shocked by that. I don't think he fits the new scheme just from a movement profile. It's the fact that he took less money apparently to be or have an opportunity to start in Miami to play a position he's not very good at, because I think they're signing him as a guard. But other teams wanted to sign him for more for him not to start. Whatever. NFL math. This is what I understand to be the rationale again behind him not being re-signed as the Chargers, and it keeps pointing towards Mike McDaniel and his picks and chooses for the guys that he wants to be a part of his offense. And again, if you go back and you check RAS scores, because they're the easiest, gauge of collective information for all of their testing, Sawyer doesn't fit the mold of the rest of the guys that are signed or the ones that were bought in or re-signed. That are going to be guys that are taking primary snaps. And even when you're talking about swing tackles, Pipkins sucks, but he's a pretty decent athlete. So that probably tells you why they took him over, Sawyer. And the same thing for Penning. Penning, he can't bend at the hips at all. He's always chest over knees and falling face forward, but dude tested out of his mind, so he can apparently move. That being said, he also took precedent over Sawyer as well. So just sucks, man. You weren't a good enough athlete. Therefore, you got the boot, and you can probably thank Mike McDaniel for it.
All right. I know there's some other departures, but I don't think any are important or worth mentioning, right? I'm like Benjamin St. Juice and everybody else.
I'm a little surprised St. Juice didn't come back, but
yeah, it is what it is. All right. So let's talk about it, because we're an hour 20 in. Let's talk about how you're feeling about the offseason so far.
Okay. So let's just call it what it is. The Chargers didn't do enough to truly fix. Let's just talk about the interior of the offensive line, because we know that's the elephant in the room. They addressed it, but they didn't solve it. Like, you bring in Tyler Biadasz, that helps with like your communication and stability, no doubt. But he's not what you would call a dominant interior presence, but he's definitely an above average starter. So you fix that. Cool. And then you look at a move like Cole Strange. That's a complete projection play. You're betting on the upside, maybe, instead of bringing in a proven high level guard who can immediately like anchor the pocket. That's really kind of the theme here in the offseason. There's a lot of hope this works instead of we know this works. And like when you got a quarterback like Justin Herbert, that's a super dangerous game. Interior pressure is the quickest way to disrupt elite quarterbacks. We know that. Like, it collapses the pocket before the routes even develop. It just makes things very difficult, muddies everything up. Like, we've seen it before with the Chargers. And it's not always the edge rushes. It's that immediate push up the middle that throws everything off rhythm. But the frustrating part, again, is that they had the cap space to go out and get true difference makers on the inside of this offensive line. This wasn't a situation where they couldn't spend. They just didn't prioritize it. Instead, they leaned into like versatility, depth, and scheme fits. But at some point, you need dudes in the middle who can just flat out win reps. So because of, if the interior breaks down, it doesn't matter what you added at running back, tight end, or even tackle. Your offense is still playing on like a shaky foundation. So collectively, that's been the focus of the offseason so far. Free agency is the fact that they haven't truly done anything to repair the interior of the offensive line aside from Biadasz. And we felt like going in, that was going to be a no-brainer. We thought they were absolutely going to get that done. At least I did. And then go into the draft and be able to do a whole lot of best player available. Like, you had the bread, you had the chicken to get it done, and then go into the draft and just kind of, with your 5 picks, do what you wanted to do. Now you're in a situation to where you're going to have to maneuver, potentially. You may have even involve a player to pick up additional picks. But lastly, to get the focus off of and the emphasis just off of the interior of the offensive line, with the amount of money they have left in free agents, on the caps, like $60 million, you're not just going to bank that and take it into the season with you. What I feel like is that they're holding on to money because they're looking to make another big move, and potentially at wide receivers the way that it feels, because they were already attached to names like Mike Evans, AJ Brown, what's my guy out in Indianapolis, Alec
Pierce.
Alec Pierce. So you heard them connected to all of those names, and nothing worked out. But AJ Brown, we know, is probably going to be a post-June situation to where the Eagles can kind of split up that dead cap. So maybe they're holding on to the rest of this bread so that they can spend it on a guy that's going to take up a decent amount of cap space via trade. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, because at this point, if you're just holding on to 60 million like Scrooge McDuck for the hell of it because you're penny pinching, then you're not the team that I thought you were going to be going into year 3 of the Harbaugh era, because this was the year that I thought that we're going to be pushing towards the Super Bowl. What they're doing right now is not in line with a team that's looking to make a run at a championship. So the only thing that's stopping me from punching a hole in the wall is the logic, or you can call it cope, that I think something big is coming at some point before the season starts. And that's where I stand right now.
The only other thing I can think of is that they're planning on re-signing guys like Derwin and Thule, but also they never front load contracts. So it's not like they're going to put big chunks of money up this year to take a lot of that 60 million. Where we stand now, you've mentioned it a bunch of times, but they have 5 picks. And right now they need 2 guards. They're going to have to get an edge because Kennard is not going to help you as your edge 3. And Dupree, I can't believe he's got a roster spot. Probably need a corner. Going to have to improve in the interior defensive line. Tomlinson's getting up there in age anyway. Is Elijah Molden your starting free safety for the future? You don't have Keenan right now. You probably need to add another wide receiver. I mean, we're talking about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 positions just off the top of my head. They could probably use a linebacker. There's a bunch of other positions. They could have probably used another tight end. Like there's just too many holes in this roster to fill with 5 picks. And what really is upsetting to me is I know we got to wait for the draft, and I guess we got to wait for those roster cuts and when they start cutting 53 and post June 1 and all that other stuff. But this on the surface feels like roster mismanagement. Like this is true roster negligence. You can't go into a season like they had where they lost their season, not only the playoffs, but their entire season because of how bad their interior offensive line play was. And somehow look at that and say, I know what I'll do. I'll make it worse somehow, even with all the money. Not just, hey, there's nothing we can do. Like you have money at your disposal, guards willing to upgrade your offensive line, and you said Cole Strange might be okay. I mean, Biotish is good. I mean, he's above average. He's a good addition. And I don't want to minimize that, but I would take Zion Johnson and Mekhi Becton over Cole Strange and Penning or Pipkins. I mean, I can't live in a world where there's an offensive line where you're trying to build around a rookie running back, a franchise quarterback who is getting murdered. Like every year he is close to getting a season-ending injury because your offensive line isn't good. And if you're going to keep putting bums in the interior offensive line where all the pressure is coming from now, and you're going to roll out 2 tackles coming off major injuries, one of which nobody even knows how good Slater is going to be after that injury. That was so major that, I mean, is it worth kicking him into guard? And now you got to get another tackle? Like what? There's so many issues with the offensive line. And then when you say stuff like offensive line is a weapon with Joe Alt, say what you mean, man. Like you can't draft Joe Alt and then in the same breath go like Cole Strange is okay and we can re-sign Trevor Penning. Those aren't weapons. That's ass, dude. You can't just put Pipkins and Penning out and Cole Strange out there and say like those are our weapons. I can't tell you, and you're not seeing me on Twitter all that much because I'm just really busy. But being on Twitter and seeing this mind-numbing conversation about, oh, Mike McDaniel doesn't really care about guards and guard play isn't important. And like, what are you talking about? What coach in the history of football ever has said, I know I'll just get 3 maybe good offensive linemen? Who would purposefully get terrible guards on purpose? That makes no sense. I need 4 tires on my car, but I'll get 2 good ones. And then the 2 other will just like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. That's not how that works. You want the best possible players in the best possible positions. And offensive line is one of the most important positions in all of football. And somehow this old school head like Harbaugh and Ortiz are going to say offensive line is where we're going to live and die. And somehow you're just going to die. Like, you're not doing what you say. Like, you're saying that you're going to build up this offensive line, and it's a process. And we're talking about like a 3-year window where we're starting to ascend and really buy in. And then in year 3, you bought in on Cole Strange. Like, what are we talking about? You can't just tell me that Mike McDaniel, Joe Ortiz, and Harbaugh are saying we don't care about guards after what they saw last year. All they've been saying all offseason is that they have to improve the interior offensive line, and that's 3 positions. They improved at 1 spot and got worse at 2 other spots. And you know how bad Mekhi Becton's been? He was terrible. He was like a saloon door. Like, he would just be open all the time. Like, you could just run right by Mekhi Becton, and somehow you're just going to run through Cole Strange. Like, I don't understand what they're going to do and how they're going to fix this. Because, and I know like they had Spencer Burford in, and is it Burford or whatever?
Whatever. He's a Raider
whatever
now.
it is. They talk about like he's coming in and like, you know, they're obviously still looking for a guard, but it's too late now. What are you doing? Why do you sit on your hands with all this money and then now go, I don't know, we just don't have any guards to like play? Like, what? We had the same conversation last year. That's what makes it so frustrating. Going into the season, we were like, you cannot, under any circumstances, have Bradley Bozeman as a starting center. And they sign Andre James, and you're like, well, I mean, that's better. But then they don't play Andre James, and they stuck with Bradley Bozeman. And, I mean, granted, last year there was an argument for it because Mekhi Becton was pretty good with Philadelphia and really promising and big body, very athletic. You can make an argument for that. And so that seemed okay. And then you'd hope Zion Johnson would take another leap or whatever. But the problem was you could not have Bradley Bozeman. We already knew Zion was going to be bad, but we thought maybe he'd be serviceable. And then you'd hope Mekhi Becton would put it together for a 2nd year in a row, which didn't happen. But you could not bring Bradley Bozeman back. And they did, and they suffered the consequences. And it was a lost season where Herbert had to play Superman all the time. And if you've got a quarterback like Justin Herbert, you have to build around him. If you draft Omarion Hampton as your first-round running back, you have to build around him. If you bring in Alec Ingold, you got to build around him. If you bring in Charlie Kolar, you got to build around him, and that's all offensive line. You have 5 question marks right now. Bionis is coming off a major injury last year. Alt and Slater are all coming off injuries, and I don't know what you're going to do at guard. And you have 5 picks, and then you're going to hope that a team cuts a guard? What are you talking about? This is negligence. I have no other explanation for it. And some are like trying to cope online and be like, well, guard's not important. And look at what Miami did 3 years ago. What are you talking about? There is no argument for, I'm not going to upgrade my offensive line. I'm not going to upgrade the interior. That is not an argument we can have. That's coping. What do you mean you don't want a better player on the interior? That makes no sense to me. I do not understand what we're talking about. And if we're just going to go into this season and say we're going to punt the interior offensive line again and or draft 2 rookies and try to figure it out, I don't know, man. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what we're doing.
I'll say this. This is what I'm trying to understand about the rationale here. Guards aren't important because you can circumvent them in the scheme. Well, why not get players that can improve the scheme or improve upon it? Why are you bringing in guys that you have to actively work around? That doesn't make sense to me. That's counterproductive. Why don't you just get decent players that, again, could at least at worst partially elevate the scheme? It's like, fam, you won the lottery, right? You're not broke. Why are you stopping at the gas station for top ramen? Hell, at least just go across the street and buy a big arch. Like, like something serviceable. It doesn't have to be top tier. It just doesn't have to be the worst that you could possibly do when there's absolutely no reason for it. It's why I don't understand. It's almost like Mike McDaniel, and we are happy that we brought him in the fold as offensive coordinator. Totally. I'm still there. But there's almost this level of cockiness associated with what he felt like he was able to make work without having the best players. And the truth of the matter is that in no way, shape, or form does that mean you're going to be able to mimic that all the time. Why not just do the thing that makes the most sense? You can get serviceable players, run your scheme, and then it's just that much better. Why get trash because it might have worked for you here and there to prove a point, to save money? What you got to save money for? You have the money now. Like, you could still sign serviceable players and still have bread left over to do other things that you want to do. So again, to go from what Jim Harbaugh preached about tip of the spear with the offensive lineman to now having this be the play makes me feel like that whole offensive line, or sorry, the head coach of the offense thing is being taken way too seriously, way too literally, and they just gave the keys over to McDaniel and he's just doing whatever he wants. Because I can't imagine a guy like Jim Harbaugh, who pounds the table for offensive linemen, who is such an advocate for them, who calls them weapons, is just sitting back like hands up, like, yeah, just do your thing, Mike. We know you'll figure it out. None of that makes sense to me. But again, I guess logic does not apply here, and Mike McDaniel is a genius, and we all just need to believe that it'll work. But if it does not work, understand that this is a guy that you may have for 1 year. That's the way it sounds. So you're going to just throw this hodgepodge of offensive line together for a single year of Mike McDaniel, who could leave after this year, and then you're back again trying to fix it all over again. And the guy that's going to be here long term, number 10, is just getting teed off again. And he's having to learn a new system all over again with new pieces on the interior again. Like, can we just stop the Ferris wheel? Let's just do things that make sense. Develop a team that can win and compete long term, because 11 wins pop, that just ain't going to be enough moving forward.
No. And so Ricky Tan said the season starts in March, or season starts in September. It's March. You think the season starts this Sunday? And I so like I said, like, obviously I told you there's still the draft, there's still those post one cuts. I understand there's stuff coming up, but this is the frustrating part about it, is that this is the same conversation we had last year at this same exact time. They had Bradley Bozeman, they hadn't had Becton yet. And once they got Becton, it was like, well, it's still not good enough. This is not a good enough offensive line. And it was their Achilles heel last year. So if, again, season starts in September, who are you signing then? Who are the guards that are going to make this team better? They're just, free agency is almost over. It is at the bottom of the barrel right now in terms of players and skills and everything else. So if you're telling me that we have to wait until March, until September, so I keep confusing those dates, I hear you and I understand. The only reason I'm getting so fed up with this is because it's the same conversation we had, and they could have easily have gotten better, and they didn't. So I don't know what to tell you.
You know what, Garrett? You're handling that very diplomatically. Let me chime in here for a second. We're Chargers fans. We're tired of being patient, okay? Let me talk to this whole it's not the start of the season thing. No. It's March. But you know who isn't playing around? The teams that have really competed are going out there in March and making big moves to improve upon their teams that were almost this close to winning. There are multiple teams that were in the finals of the playoffs in those last few games of the playoffs that have gone out and made significant moves for their teams to improve in March. It doesn't matter that it's March or the fact that the season doesn't start until September. You do what you have to do to improve upon your team when you can do it. When the moves can be made and you have the means to do it, you get it done. The Chargers are playing a game like they just have a ton of time to waste, and they're smarter than everyone. They're playing 4D chess, and everybody else is sitting around, playing badminton, whatever the hell you feel like is an easier game that isn't as complicated. I will tell you this. For me, my issue is that I was expecting, and I said this before, by year 3 that this team would be doing something significant with regard to competing for a championship. There are way more questions right now than there are answers. That is not what I expected in year 3 of a Harbaugh-led organization. So you're going to have to forgive me specifically if I'm not exercising as much patience as to think, well, it's only March. We've got months to go. Because yes, could things change? Absolutely. And do I hope they will? Yes, we've actually spoken to that because I said I'm sitting here thinking that with the amount of cap space they have, I expect something big to get done. Or yes, there could be someone who gets cut, but that's just playing a guessing game. You don't know these things for sure. So if you find yourself in a pinch when you're getting towards the beginning of the season in training camp and you're hoping something happens, or that deal that you think you can get done via trade doesn't work because someone else presents a better deal and you're left in the dust, and then you got to figure it out with the tools that you have right now, the players on you, you're telling me it's going to be Cole Strange that's going to be your right guard and Trevor Penning potentially as your left guard, and you're just going to figure that out because of the scheme? Come on, man, stop playing with me. I don't have time to wait around like that. Again, we are in an opportunity with a quarterback that is at pretty much the apex of his skills. He's now in a situation with an offensive coordinator that can utilize him to the best of his abilities, and they're still playing the I'm smarter than everyone else game as opposed to doing the things that they know will work. So with that being said, you're going to have to once again pardon me for my lack of patience, but I'm a Chargers fan, a long suffering one. I ain't got that much left.
Yeah. And to get Biotish at the price they did and still have the money at their disposal to get a guard, a good enough guard, which Beef Tallow really, really wants us to name a specific guard that Mike McDaniel should have signed in free agency. And I mean, we've said a lot of them, but we talked about Isaac Siamalo, the one who signed with the former Steelers guard. We talked about Chris Paul was another popular name. I liked AVT. I know he's injury prone, but I felt like athletically he would have been a pretty good fit, even on a 1-year rental, just to see how he was. I'm trying to think of the other names we had. That's 3.
What's up, my guy from the Packers?
Randuns? No,
not Raduns.
No. That's the Saints.
The center.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. He was the perfect fit, and now I just lost his name. Shoot. I'm gonna find it.
All right, while you're looking that up, I mean, I still got a name out there for you that could still work. I mean, he's coming off an injury, but Brady Christensen from Jenkins.
Oh, no.
Okay, yeah. That was it. Brady Christensen from the Panthers was someone who played some really good guard for the Panthers the last few years. Again, he's coming off of injury, but he's somebody out there that they could go get. And even if it's someone who's working his way back from an injury, he's played guard at an above average level also, and it probably wouldn't cost you a lot to do. Again, there are options out there that they can bring in that can contribute that would be better than the trash that they've either re-signed or bought in, and it wouldn't cost them that much more to do it. That's the point that most of us are trying to make here. Yeah. We're not asking them to go out and spend above their means or like overpay in order to do it. Just go get something that isn't crap.
Yeah.
How hard is that? And you can still go draft players to develop behind it. That's it. We're not asking for like top of the league players at every position. That's not realistic. I mean, although the freaking Rams figure out how to do this crap every year, and we're like, I guess, really close to getting AJ Brown too. These really good teams find a way to play the game and get the players that they need to still be in competition. Meanwhile, again, the Chargers like to do the DVD bargain bin shopping at Walmart. And this year, I mean, I'm not saying they're cheap overall because they've paid some of their players, like some of their top guys, they go out and pay. So it's not across the board. It's just, I understand the whole rationale behind free agency supplementing your team and you're building it through the draft. I totally get it. But when you have this kind of money to spend, you could at least go get 1 or 2 higher level contributors to add to your team. And I understand the comp pick formula, but you better be hitting on those comp picks. That's all I got for it.
Yeah. I mean, almost an hour ago, talked about how we would have never paid Odafe Owe 100 or 96 million over 4 years. Like, we're not saying go out and give Jalen Phillips 120 million or like give Alec Pierce the contract he got with the Colts. Like, that is not what we're saying. We're not even saying like go. We didn't even say that the Tyler Linderbaum contract was any good. Like, we're not.
That was insane.
And what?
That contract's insane.
Yeah, but what? So like, and that's the biggest position in need. They need an interior offensive lineman. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't really have. I don't have a lot much to say. I think I said a lot, and it obviously.
No, that's cool. Wait, hold on. I see something really quick. I want to
okay.
answer. I know we're getting late here.
Last one.
Where did it go? Is this it? Okay, so you're talking about drafting multiple offensive linemen here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Let's say you draft a couple of capable offensive linemen. Perfect. Let's say they get in and they're successful. Cool. That's 2 of your 5 draft picks. Now, you want to build your team through the draft, but you're limited on actual draft capital because you're now having to spend 2 picks unnecessarily on your interior offensive line. So unless there's a plan to find another 2 picks this year, or at least 1, then great. You got 2 potentially capable offensive linemen, but they're going to be rookies. And now you're inserting 2 rookies into your starting lineup, maybe. That's not something that I would love to do. Again, from a team building standpoint, based on like your current assets, it's not something I would love. If they did it, it's almost like because they have to. And that's what you're trying to avoid, having to do things like that.
Yeah. And so then something's going to have to be cut because you have to take 2 guards. You painted yourself into a corner and now you have to get 2 guards. Man, it makes me sick. I can't. It was supposed to, and it's not like doom and gloom. It's just, it feels like the same old business. I mean,
hurry up and wait, man. It's hurry up and wait. And I'm tired of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, the fans will tell you that, it's only March and things can happen, and they sure can, but man, they haven't in forever. I mean, not forever. I mean, ever. And so, yeah, I mean, I just don't. It feels like when I hear the argument that guards don't matter, and when people say like, oh, guards aren't important in McDaniel's scheme, it just raises so many red flags to people who just don't know what they're talking about. I don't know how you can say in one breath that, McDaniel's scheme depends on a strong offensive line and being athletic and big, and then in the other one say that guards don't matter. I don't know.
Guards don't matter. It's so wild to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody that says Mike McDaniel's like, oh, this is a great fit for Mike McDaniel's scheme, ask them what that means. Like, tell me what Mike McDaniel's scheme is and how you could possibly make an argument that guards don't matter.
Do you want to hear the thing that really grinds my gears about that? So the problem is, especially with last year, instant pressure. So if guards don't matter, if you're getting whipped off the snap, it doesn't matter how athletic you are. The play is immediately screwed. If you lose off the snap of the ball, because let's say you might be a really great athlete, but your initial reaction off the ball isn't good, so you're constantly having to play in recovery. How do you mitigate that at 2 positions? That's what I'm curious about. Why would you put that kind of stress on your offensive line? Why would you ask your quarterback to have to navigate that unnecessarily? So when people say things like guard play doesn't matter, okay, cool. I'm not here to argue with you.
You're telling on yourself.
I'm not here to argue with you. Okay, you got it. You got it, champ.
All right. Well, we got an almost 2-hour podcast. So, yeah, let's hope things turn around very soon, and maybe there is a deal in the works, and it's all good. But those are definitely our feelings on how this free agency period has gone. Some really good signings, some that are going to go over the radar and some are under the radar, and some contracts are players that are going to definitely outplay their contract. And I'm real happy about all that. But for now, thanks for joining us. Make sure you subscribe, because once we pop on, you will know right away. And we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Salute.